All righty. Greetings. Welcome back to Black Bear News, where everything is connected. Was Joseph? I see you. Um, got a caller right off the bat. Give me 2 seconds, Joseph. I just want to say hey to everybody. The gang's all here. Hello, hello, and welcome. Welcome back to Black Bear News, where everything is connected. We're live on YouTube, Rockfin, Callin, Twitter. Let's see. Here's interesting. Here's okay. They want to try what to Denver? They want to try what to people? Darting? Is that what you mean? Is that what you mean? Huh. Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's a whole lot going on, and it could be because according to the people that are, the limits to growth people, and I know. In some circles, the limits to growth people are the worst ever. But they actually could just be scientists that can take data and evidence and put it together and see where it's going to go in the future. And that's perfect. People can do that. They can triangulate. And you might want to listen to what they have to say. But there's been some new, an update to the limits to growth thing that we're going to talk about. Anyways, Joseph, what you got on your mind? I just want to make sure everybody can hear me okay, and can hear the sound okay.
Good morning, Kevin.
What's up, man? How are you?
I am about like you, according, at least taken from your title. And I was listening to Paul Beckwith this morning, and geez, I drawn a totally tongue-tied on the name of Mr. Aerosol Masking.
James Hansen.
No,
No, different person.
Heat is Civilization is a heat engine. I don't know why I can't say his name. I know his name.
Thomas. I know who you're talking about.
Mustache. Ecologist.
Oh, you're talking about you're talking about that guy.
I mean, he's one of the best climate communicators.
He is.
He's been excommunicated. Same with Paul Beckwith. And
has Paul Beckwith been excommunicated?
No. The other. Why can't I say his name?
I don't know.
From Arizona University?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So his big thing is, Paul Beckwith was saying we need to do geoengineering, solar radiation management. And that ties in with the other person who, I mean, all respect in the world, but he thinks that aerosol masking reflects most of the energy. blah blah blah, and it literally goes into the oceans, and neither of them really do a good job including the ocean stratification that goes on, which takes the bulk of everything we do to make that happen, and loads it like a spring. And
A spring that's about to
they
catapult
both
us in the ass. Sorry.
right. So if two of our best communicators who understand a lot of what's going on better than the average scientist are misaligning and co-joined at the hip on that particular facet, how you know? I mean, there's already enough communication. So my call in is so quick and at your intro because I'm frustrated. Those guys need to be on board with the bigger picture, and I don't get it. I don't get it.
So let me rewind a little bit because so they are on board with solar radiation management.
Yes, exactly. Which
but the
misaligned.
But in the classic sense or the mirrored sense?
Both.
No.
Like Paul believes that that's one solution that needs to happen, and he's pushing for it. And so his following and his compatriots are going to go right along with that.
James Hansen thinks that too.
Right, and then you've. Why can't I think of his name? I don't know. Let me check.
Mm-hmm.
I feel totally disrespectful for that, and I apologize. He's a fave, you know. You can't comment on his posts anymore.
No, you can't.
I can't think of his name.
Yeah.
You know who I'm talking about?
Guy. No,
yes.
I'm sorry, that's wrong.
Guy McPherson.
Yeah, he hates when people call him Guy. So
right.
I didn't mean that. Guy, if you're listening or if your wife is listening, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to call you.
And it's funny because Osama has me calling him Guy also.
It's it was a reflex. It was just a
right.
But
thank you, Osama. He's really right up there with what he preaches, and yet he'll say the aerosol masking as though that's keeping solar radiation away from us, and really it's driving inert capacitance of energy into the oceans at an ever-increasing rate. And the more stuff you put in the air, the more stuff gets absorbed in the ocean, along with its radiative capacitance.
Yeah.
And I don't know why that's a stretch for them. They're clearly intelligent, well-educated, and knowledgeable. So I think it's the same hopium in a different glass, is what I think.
Yeah.
And it works both ways.
Man, it just goes to show you that really, intelligent people can have blind spots.
Yes, but we need those intelligent people all aligned in a greater picture truth to make a dent in the lack of understanding that we face each day in our lives. All of your watchers and listeners, included.
Yeah.
And me and you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry for being emotional.
Yeah. No, it's all good. I mean, I think that it's hard. It's going to be hard to unravel, all of these things, and hard to be, people are trying to make sense of the, what's the best thing to do while the Titanic's going down.
Right. And your title
and so, and
right there.
and it, it's hard. That's, you're just going to people, standing on the deck going, let's do this. No, let's do this. No, let's, whatever. And, I don't know. People did survive the Titanic, so I don't know if that's a great example.
Not very many.
What's the number actually?
I guess more than you might think.
Yeah. There were actually quite a few, which is actually surprising considering the frigidity of the water, right? When I heard how many people survived, I was like, really? How it was 700 survived out of like 2,000. But anyways, that's beside the point.
Well, the non the, the non-conformity at the science level of these greater picture items involved in climate change causes me to lose my hopium.
Yeah, sure.
And
Right. Yeah, I mean nobody's going to we're going to do we are guaranteed to do the wrong thing. As things fall apart. And that's unfortunate. That I mean that's why there isn't a lot of hope. You know what I mean, for actually doing something reasonable at the end.
there a,
But
there are lots of people who want to know what direction to go.
yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, I don't have any degrees in anything. But
well, you're a truth seeker.
I am.
And you're not hampered by having a narrow view through a degree on which to look. And that's a boon for your listeners. For me, I listen to you every chance I get.
I appreciate
for
that,
this
man.
reason that we're talking. No, I appreciate you.
But yeah,
And I wish
you go on.
I just wish Guy McPherson would talk to people like you more. I wish Paul Beckwith would talk to people like you more.
Yeah.
And get some of these topics tabled and have a discussion on where he's actually misguided, and where he's really strong, we can become more guided.
Almost like what's been happening, what I've been seeing on Twitter, and people can make fun of this or not, or think that this is a real thing, but they're having I'm seeing on Twitter they're having these zero hedge debates, and it's like super liberal people and super conspiratorial and super like Glenn Greenwald and Alex Jones and I don't know the names of all the other people.
Glenn Greenwald with Alex Jones.
Yes,
I mean, they conferred. That's intense.
Yeah, and along with other kind of bringing in people from all spectrums of political thought to kind of debate through these topics. Although, the last one I saw, Glenn Greenwald was just like, this is stupid, right? This isn't even a debate. People are just black, Glenn Greenwald kind of like poo-pooed the whole process. But on the clip that I just saw, he's telling this guy, how absolutely ridiculous it is to call January 6th a coup. Like, he's like, this is what happens in coups, right? The person in charge takes over the military and directs the military to take over the country. Like, that didn't happen. So just please be quiet. Right. And so he just like slaps this guy down, like with just facts and truth, right? But it's not even about that. It's the fact that, like, yeah, what the thing that I'm trying to bring up is just the idea that you can get all these people together to kind of hash through ideas, I think is kind of cool. Whether it actually produces anything or not, I don't know. But it's good to be able to have the discussions. And I don't, the climate change community is so weird. I think that there is a lot of agreement among scientists and communicators about the direness of the situation, right? Like, I think there's a basic acceptance of that.
I agree.
Then it's like, then you just get wild divergences about what to do about it. Then, everybody's just going like, yeah, it's real bad. We got to do something. And then it's just, you have one camp that's like more renewables or a carbon tax, or right, that think that they can solve the problem through the economy.
And that's a big problem.
And that's an absolute no. And then and then there are camps that think that we could geoengineer ourselves out of the problem. And pretty much a no too, right? So
it translates to the economy if you really boil it all
it
down,
does.
right?
It
Yeah.
actually is the same thing, right? Put it in the same camp. We think we're going to solve this problem and keep the thing going.
Which is why I don't understand Paul Beckwith and Guy McPherson saying the things they do after everything else that they say.
Yeah.
You know,
And I don't
it's
know. I don't know why
astounding.
degrowth voices aren't, louder. They're out there. I see people. Some people talking about the degrowth idea. They're out there, but nobody can even. That's a idea that people have a hard time contemplating, and that's also a problem, right? Because you can't. Degrowth is absolutely the answer, or some form of managed collapse, if you will.
Either by your own will or by force from nature when it gets here to your
Yeah,
door.
right.
Yes. Yeah,
That's
and
absolutely
McPherson
the
used
way
to be
we're
a
going to
voice
have to
for that.
go. Yeah, that's absolutely the way we're going to have to go. But people can't explain to people the path between here and there. Well, first of all, you have to get past the idea that people are going to reject the whole idea. You know what I mean? You say degrowth, and they're like, "What are you talking about?" I don't know. They just can't even really onboard it into their brains. So that's an issue. But then, and I think it's partly an issue because people can't communicate. Here's what it looks like. Here's the path. Calm down. Just relax. I know it might be a little scary. It doesn't have to be. I know you're going to lose all your stuff, and there's an argument about another large, a huge issue is that you have these lunatics. The wrong people are talking about climate change, and they've absolutely destroyed the conversation. You have Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum and people like that leading the way. John Kerry, Al Gore. You have
Wallace Wells.
You have these people leading the global conversation on climate change, and they are absolutely shooting everyone in the foot, themselves and everyone else in the foot. They're taking
the
out
green revolution kind of people.
They're taking out any chance whatsoever that people might go, all right, yeah, I'm down, to do this, because they're just rejecting. These people come off as crazy, and they make everyone reject, out of hand what they have to say. Like they're creating more skeptics by their ridiculousness. Yeah,
That's right.
So they're actually putting fuel onto the fire of the problem, and they're bringing people farther away from addressing this situation. And nobody wants to listen to them, and nobody wants to do what they want to do. No, everybody's going to just be like, nope, we're not doing that. So, the situation is, to quote Newsroom or whatever it is, it might be that the situation is over. I don't want to think that, but
David Wallace Wells is a best-selling author, and he's preaching that we're already decarbonizing and well on our way. And
oh my God,
he's got a huge following, globally. That doesn't help.
No.
So
yeah. So and how do you say to people, stop listening to these fools, right? Like,
right,
just stop listening.
And the solutions that Paul Beckwith and Hansen are offering only feeds that fervor. It doesn't help court the people that are following away from thinking those things. And I'm at a loss. Anyway, I don't want to take away from your show.
It's all good. Well, thanks for calling in.
Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, no worries. All right, man.
Right.
I'll take the next caller and I'll see what Johnny has to say. Johnny, what do you have to say?
Can you hear me?
You're a little broken up there.
There you go. How about now? Can you hear me okay?
You're broken up, and there's a big echo. You have to turn off whatever you're listening to.
Okay, let me do it this way. I'm going to please bear with me here a second. I'm going to turn on my other Bluetooth. Let me call back in, okay?
All right, yeah, no worries, no worries.
Okay.
All right. Well, there's just, let's see. Gonna try and cover a couple of things, or look at a couple of things. I don't know. All right, Johnny.
Okay, hopefully this is better. Is this better?
That's way better.
Great. Hey, thanks so much for taking my call.
Yeah.
Gosh, there's so much to cover. You guys are talking about a lot. Degrowth, how it is that second-tier communicators, what I call second-tier communicators, what do you call commentators about what this is all about. You talked about just so much. So let me start with this. You were talking earlier about debates. And I think that that's a big part of what we're missing here, that the scientists who have different views are not allowed to debate each other for the public. And what we get instead is communicators that sort of translate what the scientists are saying and giving their own opinion. So I think there's a problem there. I think to really, you see, because I gotta tell you, about COVID, about climate change, about a lot of topics that our society is dealing with right now to try to find the truth of it all. You can't. I'm at that position where I don't know which way to turn because I don't have the proper information. I don't necessarily value commentators' opinion on these sort of things because their opinion, they're not scientists, right?
Sure.
So a famous, very controversial Christian philosopher in the 1930s, Cornelius Van Til, put it this way, paraphrasing. He said that you don't have to be an expert in the field that you're studying to know the truth of it. All that is necessary is, and what is sufficient, is the spirit of truth in you. To translate that in layman's terms, you know bullshit when you hear it.
Right.
But the bullshit, right, you know bullshit when you hear it, but you got to hear it from the scientists. You don't want to hear it from commentators, right? Because commentators have their own ideology, their own way of viewing the world,
Sure.
You have your own way. So that's one issue, right? And in the neoliberal world that we're living in, where we don't have access to information. See, what I mean by access to information is what Noam Chomsky called manufacturing consent. The people don't have a voice, and they're not allowed to have a voice, and they're not, the left or the people are not allowed to view the two perspectives. Now, I'm asking you, I'm wondering if you have seen a debate between two different opposing views on television, on the internet, anywhere. Do you see that often? Do you see that at all?
No, not really. I mean, there's mostly just mudslinging and
Right.
name calling
Right.
and smearing. There's a lot of that.
Right.
But the thing is, when you the other thing that's an issue is we do live in an age where people can conjure up, all kinds of data or facts or studies, whether they're real or not, whether they're I don't mean real, but whether they're valid studies, whether they're supported by other studies or other scientists, right? You can conjure up like alternative facts, right? Is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. Are you guys getting a buzz? I'm sorry. So we live in an age where there's lots of like alternative theories to things and alternative facts, and it has only made it harder for people to, the propaganda is thick out there, and it's hard to, it's hard to know what's going on, right? People are in political silos, and so you can't communicate across political silos. It's just, it would be nice if people could have debates, civil debates out there, or on larger stages where people can kind of debate the merits of, what I don't see. You see debates around things like COVID or vaccines, or, not debates, but you have open discussions about these things. But climate change is one of those things that people are not really willing to I don't know. I just see a lot of misinformation on both sides.
That's an excellent point. That's an excellent point. The point that you make, that you can't trust the information, and that there are studies out there, and the roots of that, and where we can advance, whether we can get down to the truth of that, is to understand where those studies are coming from. You had mentioned earlier that economics had a lot to do with climate change, right? That they were entangled. They were.
Oh yeah.
And that's very true. These university professors that are putting out studies like the Simpson-Bowles Commission on how it is that about finance, they're so full of shit.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a study from a university, right? So the money that comes into university professors, right, across the country is backed by an ideology. So even the studies, you make a very good point. Even the studies that you're reading through peer-reviewed journals cannot be trusted, simply because there's an agenda behind that. So how do you break that? The best thing I would say is to understand and make it real clear up front, these people are financing this study. And these people are financing that study. Once you understand who's financing the ideology behind it, now you could use critical thinking, your critical thinking skills, and say, am I really trusting this person that's really backed by oligarchs and ideologues, or should I not? And if I am, go ahead.
Well, and Johnny, I'm gonna have to let you go because I do. Sure. We're kind of running. Sure, okay. I'm already like more than halfway into the show.
Last point.
But I'm
okay. One last point.
Yeah,
go ahead. Resource economy. That's it. Resource economy. Peter Joseph in the Zeitgeist movement and the path towards a resource economy. That's an interesting topic. Thank you. I'll let it go at that. Appreciate it. I'll just sit and listen. Thanks.
Well, and I was going to say, it's a good point, right? You have, that's part of the, I guess, information kind of blender, right? Where it's hard to know what to believe, or what studies to believe, or what things to take seriously. Just because a certain person funds a study doesn't mean that that information is wrong, right? That's another thing too. You can't reject something just because, a particular group of people are talking about it, like climate change, right? Just because the elites are talking about climate change doesn't mean climate change is false. It means they're using it for, or we could say, I don't know. I don't want to get deep into the COVID thing, but, just because somebody is pushing something or talking about something doesn't necessarily mean that that thing is false. But, you should be wary of the conversation around it from a particular group of people, is all I'm trying to say. So, again, and going back to the limits to growth, people just outright reject that information because the Rockefellers were involved, or some group of people, Club of Rome, were involved, or something. That doesn't mean that the information is wrong, though. You may not like the people that built the nuclear bomb. That doesn't mean that it isn't a thing that actually exists, or it doesn't work the way it's intended to work, right? Like that, it's a silly thing to reject something as true or scientifically, valid because certain people are talking about it. That I don't understand that that ideology, right? I mean, you can mistrust the people that are using it and using the language and talking about it. You can totally be skeptical of them and what their motives are, but just to reject the whole thing outright as being false, and I see it every single day. It's constant. People doing this with climate change. So that propaganda is actually very effective, and they want, on some levels, they want people to be skeptical of it and not take it seriously and think that we can, we can either ignore it or renewable our way out of it, or technologize our way out of it, or just put our hands over our eyes or ears and just ignore it, and or we can't do anything about it because it's the sun. Can't do anything about it. Might as well just keep going. Anyways, guys, is something going on in the chats? Nobody is banning anybody, by the way. So if you guys are having issues with being heard in the chat, I don't know. Or are you talking about somebody else banning somebody? I don't know. But somebody's talking about, I hope anybody who's not seeing their comments, especially on YouTube, please understand that I don't know, I'm not banning anybody. I'm not banning any comments. I don't do that. If I ban a comment, I will say I'm banning you, right? Unless people are just being really, unless people are being just really hostile. So, okay. All right. Just want to make sure everybody's okay in the chats. And if you find yourself banned or your comments are banned, don't assume that I don't block people or ban people, unless, unless you're just being really hostile. I don't know. I wouldn't do that. So just bring it up to me and maybe I can figure out what the problem is going, just point it out and I can figure out what's going on. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I don't even ban, I don't even ban, people that leave negative comments. I don't ban your comments unless you're just really going off. I just, duly noted and all that. So, anyways, I can't see if anybody's watching on Twitter. Well, let's see if the StreamYard will tell me. I feel like more people are watching on Twitter than they let me know. Yeah, I see that. I see that. Okay, just making sure, because I'm seeing some folks talking about banning of comments, and a few people have left some comments on the videos in the last couple of days about I'm not banning anybody. Okay, I would not block anybody or ban anybody, especially if you're a regular listener. I wouldn't do that to you without like a whole lot of warning. I would say, hey there, hey, you're going, you're kind of over the edge there. I would kind of say something to you. I wouldn't just block somebody. So, anyways, I see. Exactly, going south. Don't assume someone blocked you. In some cases, YouTube banned them for you without you knowing it. I know it's insane. Yeah, actually, Rockfin does that too. Occasionally, people have been. It's happened like 2 or 3 times to Poppy. She's like, "Did you block me?" And I was like, "No, I didn't." And I went into the Rockfin app and saw that she was blocked. So I didn't, had nothing to do with me. I don't know why. I think all the channels have the ability to do that. So. Anyways, I usually really announce it very, very loudly if I'm going to block somebody. Okay. All right. So let's, we're already kind of late into the show here. And, let me see if I can cover a few things real quick. A lot of severe weather going on in the world. It should be noted, because that is a hallmark of the climate changing. And man, have you all seen this? This footage is wild to me. And some people got really hurt in this. I've watched it several times. I'm like, somebody absolutely got, I mean, this woman got just body slammed on this door. Jesus. Poor lady. Let's watch this. This is from a U.S. military base on the Kwajalein Atoll in the Marshall Islands. There was a cyclone. And some really large waves came up. Man, this is a crazy video. Oh my God. And this isn't the whole video. So that was the first wave.
Keep the door closed.
There's another video, another shot of this. There's another shot of this where that first wave comes in, knocks the door out, and comes in, and there's another larger wave that comes in after that, and then the power goes out. And imagine being in that. Imagine being in that building or near that building, and the power goes out, and there's this huge waves coming through. That's got to be absolutely frightening.
What?
Yeah.
The door closed.
Right after that wave, that first wave, there is another larger wave that comes through, and it's pretty nuts. Pretty nuts footage. I said yesterday that I didn't see any fallout from all the rain that we got, and I was wrong. As soon as I went back on Twitter after the show, I saw that San Diego was flooding. So I hadn't heard of any issues with the flooding here in LA, but in San Diego, massive flood. We got some really hardcore rains in the over the weekend. So, and here's a car being taken away. I don't know if somebody was in this car. It looks like somebody might have been in that car. And more footage here from San Diego. So we did get flood level rains this weekend, and it was, pretty massive. Pretty massive amount of rain. There's another car being taken down the road.
As fuck right now. I'm not gonna lie. I'm hella scared. That whole fence is done. Oh my God.
I think this is the same area, but man, it's just taking everything in its path. And in Tanzania, Dar es Salaam, they, experiencing the same thing. It's typical flood footage. Cars stranded or floating down a river. And this is the new type of thing that happens every day, right? I just don't know how you could. Anyways, I'm a broken record. Jazz Farm says peak everything. That's what got me into all this prepper stuff. Yeah. All right, so let's look at some peak everything. I'm going to read a little bit of this, but this chart is something I wanted to look at while we have time. These shows go by so quickly. I feel like maybe I should do longer shows because I just can't seem to get all the information I want to get out. All right. This chart has been floating around. And I believe Steve Austin had some good commentary on it. But here is a peak food production according to this chart. This is the recalibration chart. 2024. We are here. We are here. Another interesting thing about this chart is this red line here is I'm sorry. Red line is industrial output, which is around the same time as food production, goes straight down. It's interesting. Does it seem that industrial output it looks like this happens, I'm guessing a year before food production goes down. Here, the orange line is population. So food production starts going down in 2024. Population still stays somewhat buoyed through 2050. Right, food production almost falls off a cliff in a way. I mean, it's not straight down, but pretty good incline or decline there from 2024 on, looking like it's going to hit almost half the food production by 2050. Population still somehow stays. This curve looks awful gentle, considering the food production falls off a cliff. This curve looks real gentle. So maybe they're counting on humans finding sustenance somehow, some way, or lab growing their own food for a little while. Yeah, I see that population curve looking a lot steeper, kind of trending along the food production part. But hey, I don't know. So saying 2024 falls off a cliff and then, population follows suit. But somehow they're thinking we stay around, or a lot of us stay around. I don't know. I don't know how that happens. Anyway, so let's. I've been looking at this chart. There were a couple of articles I want to read, and we'll start with this a little bit, and then maybe we'll move to the other one, or maybe I'll bring the other one back tomorrow. Seeing as these shows just go right on by. All right, 2025, a civilizational tipping point. There's a growing body of evidence that 2024 to 2030 period will present us with a critical juncture, upending a centuries-long era of economic growth. No, it will have nothing to do with climate change or novel viruses. Those two will come somewhat later. Missing entirely from mainstream discourse, there is a greatly overlooked side of our predicament. which will set a nice little game of musical chairs in motion, most probably around 2025. Fasten your seatbelts while you can. We live in a supermassive complex system, often referred to as modernity, industrial civilization, or the world economy. This enormous organism has its life of its own, with its own inputs, resources, and outputs, pollution. For all the oil, fossil fuel, they're abiotic. Oil is abiotic. It's not a... Who cares? It's pollution. It doesn't mean you still, it's a renewable. There's endless amounts of oil underground. Yeah, let's burn it. Sounds good. As well as its own life cycle. It is something best understood through the lens of systems dynamics, a modeling method developed in the late 1960s. The first results were published in 1972 in a study titled Limits to Growth. Without going too much into details, the authors were tracking the many interconnections between 5 key factors: non-renewable natural resources, persistent pollution, population, food production, and industrial output, and established various scenarios. One of them was World 3. Sorry, I put the war in myself. World 3, or business as usual, BAU. There were multiple follow-ups to the original study, all published in peer-reviewed scientific journals, all proved the original concept to be correct, right? So it doesn't really matter who funds it or where it comes from or who's involved. You can actually, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're controlling the inputs and the outputs or that you're getting the wrong data. Could mean that, but it doesn't necessarily, automatically mean that. All prove the original concept to be correct and confirm that we are indeed following the BAU scenario set out in the World 3 model. The latest iteration of these follow-up studies was titled Recalibration 23, published in November 2023. By looking at the chart above from the most recent model run, one can easily understand the interrelated nature of the system. Just concentrate on the continuous lines. As resources pink go down and deplete, both industrial output red and food production green goes through a tipping point and starts to decline. As a result, world population orange peaks and dwindles. Pollution blue will keep rising, though, as people go back to less cleaner technologies and burn just about everything they can put their hands on to stay warm in the winter. Yes, that is absolutely true. Here's, where is it? Pollution is purple. Persistent pollution will continue to rise. Well, and then there's also the, CO2 and other things that we put in the air will stay up in the air for a while. Yes, also, you're right, Steph, forever nanoparticles. Plastics will be around for a really long time. Endocrine disruptors will be around for a long time. All kinds of pollutants will be swimming around in the oceans and in our soil, topsoil, for a really long time. Needless to say, no model is. Oh, hold on. Yeah. Also, grabbing everything and burning everything to stay warm in winter. True story. Right. Remember when Texas, the grid went down a few years ago in the middle of the winter? Listen, if that would have went on for another couple of weeks or a month, every tree in for a few miles surrounding Austin or any of the large cities would have been chopped down and burned. You would have seen forests just decimated, right? Millions of people just chopping everything they possibly could get their hands on, or their own houses, chopping apart to burn. It would have been mayhem. Luckily, the power came back on. But that is what will happen. Not only that, all the animals, all wild animals, right? There's stories about people getting lost in the desert or stranded or marooned somewhere. and they don't have any food, and they resort to eating pretty much everything. They eat lizards, insects, anything that's crawling, anything that's moving. They will pick it up and eat it. So imagine 8 billion people. Imagine billions of people in a scenario where there's no heat, there's no grid, there's no food. People will grab anything that moves and start eating. So there's that. I'm not trying to ignore the Rockfin chat there, Drag Guy. I've been looking at it. Denver asks, "Do you need sunlight to grow bugs?" Yeah. Anyways, let's keep going. Needless to say, no model is perfect, but some of them can be quite useful. Since our world is immeasurably more complex than what these 5 factors show, it is impossible to make precise predictions on exactly when and where things will go south. The same goes for climate modeling, too. However, these tools are incredibly useful in decoding the cause and effect relationships between individual factors, helping us understand better where we are headed as a civilization. The authors of the study conclude, like the business as usual scenario of the Limits to Growth publication, the new scenario reflects the overshoot and collapse mode due to resource scarcity. Here, the model results clearly indicate the imminent end of the exponential growth curve. The excessive consumption of resources by industry and industrial agriculture to feed a growing world population is depleting reserves to the point where the system is no longer sustainable. Pollution lags behind industrial growth and does not peak until the end of the century. Peaks are followed by sharp declines in several characteristics. The interconnected collapse, or as it has been called by Heinberg and Miller, polycrisis, occurring between 2024 and 2030, is caused by resource depletion, not pollution. The increase in environmental pollution occurs later and with a lower peak. The main message here, yeah, so I'm going to disagree a little bit with this because going to disagree a little bit with this because okay, we'll take the peak pollution at face value, but pollution has already caused pollution and overuse of resources are already causing, they're already putting pressures on growing food. The food production is not just about a depletion in resources or topsoil. It is that. But climate change, which is caused by pollution, climate change is pollution, literally, right? Pollution has caused the climate to change, is already putting a pressure on growing food. That's already happening right now. So, I don't know where that goes in the quantification of what they're showing here. But somewhere in there, climate change is a pressure point that is going to, that is also causing food production to decline. So I don't know how you ignore that. Anyways. It looks increasingly certain that we will run out of resources sooner than the coming deterioration of the climate could put an end to our lifestyle. They're actually hand in hand. That's quite a feat, knowing how a growing Earth energy imbalance has accelerated warming recently. The model also assigns a not so distant time frame when the whole economy, or the whole economic model we thought to be relevant for centuries to come, might go badly wrong. As to the reason why this might indeed be the case, and as an independent corroboration to the study above, I suggest to take a look at the state of the petroleum industry. Why? Well, energy is still the economy. Bingo. Ding, ding, ding. As the basket case of Germany can testify, and despite all the hand-waving, oil is still the master resource. Ding, ding, ding. Making all other energy and mineral resources available. Ding, ding, ding. Mining, agriculture, construction, long distance transport, plastics all hopelessly depend on petroleum. Hydro, nuclear, and renewables are also made possible by using petroleum, diesel, and gasoline burning vehicles to bring people, raw materials, and equipment on site. Should the availability of oil decline, it would eventually bring all other resources and energy production down with it. Ding, ding, ding. In the past couple of posts, I already hinted at how the U.S. shale boom will soon come to an end and also mentioned the net energy predicament besetting the petroleum and mining industry. I would like to go back to the post that I talked about yesterday, or this idea that oil is a renewable thing that comes out of the earth, and they're just lying to you, telling you the fossil fuels. Why would we be spending so much money trying to get shale oil out of the ground, right? Why would we be fracking if oil were an abundant renewable resource? Just come on, man, use your brain. People that keep putting this out there as if it's a real theory. Why would you? The return on investment to fracking is barely profitable. In some cases, it's not profitable. In some cases, it costs more to get the oil out of the ground, but you can't really do that for long. But it is barely profitable because it costs so much god dang money to get that oil out of the ground. And then to refine it, it costs more money. So why would you do that if oil were a renewable resource? It just doesn't make any sense. It's completely ridiculous. I don't get it. Anyways, the process of replacing high-yield, low-energy cost fields with even costlier ones is a well-known secret of the industry, but nary a single soul talks about it outside geologist circles. You see, it's not that we will run out of oil from one day to another, catapulting our entire society into the dark ages ahead, but that oil extraction will return ever less net energy over time to the point of diminishing returns, resulting in a relentless economic contraction, making any transition to any other energy source impossible. Energy necessary for the production of oil liquids is growing at an exponential rate, representing 15.5% of the energy production of oil liquids today and projected to reach a proportion equivalent to half of the gross energy output by 2050. When the energy required for the extraction and production of these liquids is taken into account, the net energy peak is expected to occur in 2025 at a level of 400. I don't know, PJ over D. I don't know what that is. In the foreseeable future, the energy needed to produce oil liquids could approach unsustainable levels, a phenomenon called energy cannibalism. The concept of energy cannibalism is becoming increasingly relevant as mounting energy use in oil production means that the very resources needed for the transition to renewable energy may be constrained, particularly when viewed from a net energy perspective and in terms of economic growth. Peak net energy means that no matter how hard we try to replace our declining, easy-to-tap traditional oil reserves with tar sands or ultra-deep wells drilled into the seafloor, beyond a certain point, we will no longer be able to increase the amount of oil available for other uses, like manufacturing, transport, mining, agriculture, etc. Energy cannibalism does not stop at the peak, though. It will continue to take ever more energy to maintain oil extraction as existing fields mature. Operating drilling equipment, pumping seawater or CO2 into aging wells to uphold production, delivering sand used in refracking existing wells, etc., will continue to take up an ever larger portion of the oil produced as well as other forms of energy, leaving less and less for the rest of the economy. Is it any wonder that oil companies have opted to pay back their investors instead of drilling new wells and called it a day? And it's not about net energy, but the overall availability of oil. For most of the second half of the 20th century, oil companies were finding more crude than global consumption, around 5 times the demand volumes. This ratio of discovered resources versus demand has dropped in recent decades and is now at around 25%. This means that we burn 4 times as much oil every year than what we find. Again, This all ties back to that increased energy demand of finding and drilling into ever smaller, more remote oil patches. Again, why would you do this if oil just is naturally made in the middle of the earth? Okay. Why invest in ever more energy-intensive drilling methods and exploration then, when the economy can no longer bear the increased energy costs of bringing more oil to market? A quick glance at how the oil and gas industry spends its profits confirms all of the above. As an ominous sign of things to come, Occidental Petroleum CEO warned the Davos crowd already. 2025 and beyond is when the world is going to be short of oil. I have a hard time imagining anyone taking her seriously. Despite all the hand-waving, though, there is now a growing body of evidence all pointing towards this date. And these are all radically different approaches from wholly independent sources. The recalibrated 23 study, EROEI calculations, investment patterns, not to mention estimates of peak and fall in shale oil output, all indicate that we were just a year away from a net peak in oil output. And after a brief plateau, all models suggest an ever accelerating decline. Again, I also think all these theories, these, alternative theories on oil and energy and almost pretty much everything, are meant to keep people in a skeptical but still consumer-minded, right? Like, oh, all that is stupid. We can just keep going. Everything's going to be fine. They're making this up. This is all a hoax. This is all a ruse. Stop listening to these people. They're trying to scare you and blah blah blah. Right. The point of it is to keep everybody going and going and going until it doesn't go anymore. Knowing how petroleum output affects everything we do, the significance of passing the civilizational tipping point cannot be overemphasized. Ooh, excuse me. Again, this has very little to do with subsidies or finance. We are about to pass a point of diminishing returns from an energetic and geological perspective, and then it will not matter if we drill more wells. It will no longer provide any additional energy to the rest of the economy. In fact, drilling more wells beyond this point will increasingly act as a drag on the energy system. Barring an energy miracle, it increasingly looks like that from 2025 on, we will no longer be able to maintain the amount of material transported, mined, the food grown, etc., on a global aggregate. Something will not give. Something's got to give. I don't know. This is weirdly written. To that point, I want to say, why do you think the U.S., being the main hegemon of the planet, being the empire, still the dominant empire on the planet, why do you think we are ramping up this, wars everywhere? Is it that we want to capture or control the remaining resources of oil, which powers everything, right? He who controls the remaining oil as it's in decline will be in a much better position, right? So, it kind of seems a little bit obvious, right? We've already tried to disrupt, Russia's ability to, be a major player in the energy market. That was a lot of that play was around oil. Look at all the play around Gaza and the push to go to war with Iran. Do you think that's about oil? We're still in Syria. We still control the oil fields in Syria, Iraq, and all kinds of places. We don't control Saudi Arabia, not yet. Imagine if the U.S. was like, you know what, Saudi Arabia, you're up next. It's a complete possibility, right? You wouldn't think that it would happen, but don't be surprised if in this year, in the next year, you hear something about, well, we think Saudi Arabia is up to something we don't like, so we may have to we might have to actually, you know what? Saudi Arabia might need some freedom. Don't be surprised. That's why, Iran is going to need some freedom pretty soon. Anyways, oil is still the economy no matter how polluting it is, and as net energy from oil peaks, then starts to fall during this decade, it will thus directly translate into a fall in economic output. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but this means renewed raw material shortages, skyrocketing shipping costs, inflation, and overall economic decline. We are already experiencing that right now. That's happening now, not in the future. That's happening now. It's just that whole thing is going to get worse. And this is where the picture gets murkier. While there might be some not yet utilized boost to oil production, a hidden gem of an easy to drill oil patch found here and there. One thing is for sure, petroleum is a finite resource, and it's only a question of time when we hit the peak and embark on a long decline. With that said, crossing such a tipping point is not tied to a single date. At first, it might not even be noticed for months, if not a year. It could also be masked by the ongoing deindustrialization and economic decline of Europe, or a major financial crisis, both of which are closely related to fossil fuel availability. Just saying, exactly. Why are they planning? Which for years has been coming. It's almost here. The Great Reset, a Great Reset, or planning a CBDC, right? Planning on things. A shutdown of the grid or the internet or whatever, if only to bring it back. Why are they doing all that right now? Well, could be a lot of reasons, could be a lot of things involved. One of those things might be, it's just an attempt to control the last of the resources. And I'd say that's fairly obvious. Sooner or later, though, the oil shock will hit and music will stop playing. Everybody will be desperately looking for a seat, except for Europe, bleeding out on the floor already. As the first wave of panic is over, however, people all around the world will start to adapt to this new reality. But currently, there are no models to predict how exactly this will play out. We will be in completely uncharted territory, once again, decide the authors of the Recalibrate 23 study. However, it is important to note that the connections in the model and the recalibration are only valid for the rising edge, as many of the variables and equations represented in the model are not physical but socio-economic. It is to be expected that the complex socio-economic relationships will be rearranged and reconnected in the event of a collapse. World 3 holds the relationships between variables constant. Therefore, it is not useful to draw further conclusions from the trajectory after the tipping points. Rather, it is important to recognize that there are large uncertainties about the trajectory from then on. Building models for this could be a whole new field of research. All right. Well, this is a very interesting article. I'm going to have to sign off soon, guys, because it is. I'll draw. Here's a link to this article here in the chats if you all want to check it out. I may read some more tomorrow. There was another article I wanted to get to. All right. Well, I appreciate y'all listening. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with me today. We're going to continue the conversation tomorrow, of course, at 9 a.m. Pacific. We are on standard time. I know I said, I don't know why I said daylight time. Don't know what's wrong with my brain. It's one of those things where it's like when the year changes, I keep writing the 23 for a couple days until I'm like, it's not 23, it's 24. I know I spoke of it yesterday, but I will promote it again. I'm doing a fundraiser for some music projects, and if you all want to contribute or feel like it's a worthy project to contribute to, I appreciate you. Drop in link in YouTube and in Rockfin and on Twitter. If you want to check out what I got going on. Trying to make some music this year. Trying to make a lot of music this year. And also, if you appreciate the show and you appreciate me bringing it to you for free 99 every day, there are ways that you can support the show. Buymeacoffee.com/blackbearnews is one way. Cash App, Red Llama Music is another way. Venmo at Kevin Sandbloom, also a good way. PayPal.me/Kevin Sandbloom, pretty good way to support. You can Zelle me, Kevin Sandbloom at protonmail.com. And already got some supporters for my music project, and I thank you. I really do thank you. Hoping to get some more, so I can buckle on down to work. All right. Thanks, guys. I will be back tomorrow at 9 a.m., the regular time. So many good links on this. I'm going to have to come back to the Rockfin chat and grab all those links. Okay. Thanks, guys. See you tomorrow. Peace.